Today we're going to be making one of those meals that helped many families survive during one of the toughest moments in American history.
Yes, we are talking Great Depression meals. And when we look at the ingredients, it's just hot dogs, potatoes, a bit of onion, a bit of tomato sauce, and you've got a meal that was probably really comforting, but also a survival meal. These ingredients were just readily available, so people during the Great Depression just made things that would stretch and made things with what they had available. Today we are making a meal from Clara's kitchen. Clara lived through the Great Depression and she had many meals and many memories of how they made a meal stretch and how they survived really harsh times. Her recipes weren't intended to go viral, they were intended to feed families. Now today's a little bit different. It's not just about trying food, it's about trying to understand a bit of history. The Great Depression started in 1929 and so many people were affected by this, and it lasted many years and affected not just the US, but some of us in the UK, because there was a knock-on consequence of that US Wall Street crash. Now if you've watched any of Clara's videos, you'll understand that they ate a lot of potatoes in her family during the Great Depression. They used to buy sacks of them, they were readily available, and they used to have potatoes pretty much every meal. I'm not sure if that changed with the Dust Bowl disaster that also happened, because that affected a lot of the plainlands, a lot of farming industry, so I don't know if the potatoes then became quite scarce. One meal I grew up with being part Polish was pierogi, which is basically made from potatoes as well, depending on what type of pierogi you have, but it's just a way of making something so filling but very cheaply, and that's what I like about some of these Depression era meals. Let us know, do you still make some Depression era meals today? Do you find them comforting, or do you find them like essential to just make things go a little bit further? Because I know everyone's feeling a bit of a pinch at times with how things are going and with cost of living and things like that. Now we just need to cube the potatoes, so I'm just going to do that now. I actually think I'm going to quite like this meal because I do like fried potatoes in any kind of way, and for me it's very typical of the day after Christmas, where you would have leftover bubble and squeak, so any of the leftovers from your Christmas dinner, and typically we'd have like roast turkey with potatoes and vegetables. We would actually fry that all up in the morning. We make bubble and squeak out of it, serve it with a fried egg, and I think it's just lovely. And it's one of those meals that I'll quite often make on a Monday after having a Sunday lunch here. So I'm all about making food last a little bit more, not letting food go to waste. So I'm all for that in today's video, and I think is going to be a great introduction to a meal which I think is going to be really quite tasty. Guaranteed Alana's going to like it, because she keeps telling me that when we go back to America, she's having hot dogs. So to find out that there are going to be hot dogs in today's meal, I think she's going to be quite excited. We need a sliced onion for this next bit. We've got some olive oil heated up on a medium heat, and we're just going to add in the potatoes and onion and cook them until the potatoes are brown. During the Great Depression, a lot of people also lost their houses if they couldn't afford to pay their mortgages, or if they were lucky enough not to have a mortgage but they couldn't afford to pay their taxes, they lost their houses. There's one thing that Clara mentioned in her book about one of her aunts actually losing her house. And in this time, a lot of shanty houses were developed where people lived in wooden shacks, for want of a better word. From 1929 to 1933, there was mass employment. So it went from 1.6 million people to 14 million people being unemployed during those 4 years, which is like crazy. It's a massive amount of people facing such hard and difficult times. Because of this massive unemployment, people couldn't even afford to feed their families. So we did see in both the US and the UK how things like soup kitchens popped up just to be able to feed the populations, because they couldn't actually get hold of the food that they needed to cook for themselves at home, and everybody was reliant on some kind of handout. People really did kind of pull together to help each other out. Neighborhoods raised each other, families got all together and did what they needed to do to pull through, and that's something that we love, how communities always help each other out. We've got some browning on the potatoes, so we're now going to go in and add the hot dogs. I know you can get different kinds of potatoes, and it didn't really specify which potatoes you use in this recipe, but I've noticed ours are going a little bit more mushy, whereas Clara's kind of held up a bit on their own and they crisped a bit more nicely on the outside. So if you have made this recipe, let me know what kind of potatoes you use. Clara's cookbook recipe and the recipe that is on YouTube differ very slightly. So in the recipe from her cookbook, it does say to use some tomato sauce. So I went to the effort of actually making the tomato sauce also from her cookbook, and we're going to add this now now to the dish. But if you're following her recipe from YouTube, you'll notice that she doesn't add the tomato sauce in this bit, but we're going to do it today. So in her cookbook, it says to add about 3 tablespoons of the tomato sauce. And it says to allow it to continue to cook on its own and just simmer away with the heat off. I mean, this is smelling incredible already. I've got smells from the tomato sauce, I've got the onions, I've got the potatoes, I've got the Beechwood smoked Frankfurter sausages, and it's all coming together really nicely. As you can see, we finished this off with some cheese, which was another thing in Clara's cookbook recipe that's not on her YouTube channel. And I've got to admit, it does smell really good. You came downstairs, didn't you? And what did you say?
I could really smell the sausage, and it smelled really like wholesome. I think it's probably the right word, really wholesome. I can't believe something that had so little ingredients smells so good.
Well, let's see if it tastes good. I think I've got a little bit of everything in here, so I'm excited to see how it tastes. It does smell really good, and I've got to say that tomato sauce has got the garlic in it, it's got the basil or basil. Yes, that's good. That's comfort food actually. And I'm guessing in the Great Depression you probably wouldn't have been thinking of something as a comfort meal, you were just thinking of it as feeding you, but
Getting by.
this tastes comforting. Oh.
Well, I can't wait anymore. Cannot wait anymore. I'm definitely going to get a David mouthful. Oh, it smells good. Immediately I'm getting the sausage. Bit of the garlic. It's a little bit mushy. I don't know if that's potatoes.
I mentioned this to the guys earlier. I think the recipe doesn't call for a specific type of potato, so we just use regular white potatoes we get over here in the UK, and I think they just went a little bit more mushy. So I think I would swap out the potatoes to get them a little bit more crispy and hold their integrity a little bit. But taste-wise?
Taste-wise, they're really good. The only thing sort of letting it down, I say, is the potato. If it had a bit of
texture.
Had a bit of texture and it was a bit more fried.
Yes. So I'm going to say something as well. You said David mouthful. Now this recipe would serve 4 people. So we've shared it amongst us two and Alana. And I'm not really sure you would be able to deal with Great Depression era portion sizes. Actually, I don't think I would be able to deal with Great Depression portion sizes. I think we just got used to being gluttonous and eating so much more.
That's not bad. I mean, for a cheap meal, it goes far. Would we keep this into our regular rotation?
I think for a quick and easy one, you could. Now, Alana isn't going to be in the actual taste test today, but she sat over here just chilling and eating her food. Yeah? You just like the sausage? Okay, and what did you give it? She gave it a 10 for the sausage, okay? A 10 out of 10 for the sausage, so she's there. So what would you give this as a meal?
Just very quickly before I give my mark, Alana is recovering from chickenpox, so that's why she's not quite in the taste test. But for me, if it was a different potato or the potatoes were fried, I'll probably give this an 8 out of 10.
I think for taste alone, I am going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think what you're saying with the texture, I think it could do with a bit more texture, and that is not the recipe's fault. That is my fault for cooking it the way I did or the type of potato I did. But I'm going to say, for something that was meant to feed people and make things stretch, it's tasty, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really tasty.
If you enjoyed today's video, then please subscribe to the channel and give it a little like and come along with the journey as we try all things American. And all that leaves us to say is...
Take care.
God bless.
And see y'all in the next video.